revolutionaries were called fanatics. Among the bravest was Crispus Attucks. 1770, when the British attacked, the first man to die for American freedom was black. But like Bob Marley, we've been waiting in vain a mighty long time for that freedom train. Some say one day it will arrive, but James Baldwin has for all of us, how much time? How much time do you want? How much time do you need? How much more time before I get the dignity I should see?
Thank you for joining us as CBS News Miami celebrates Black history. I'm Naja Sherman. You are listening to the sounds of CBS News Miami's Jim Barry and his band Benevolence, playing his original song, How Much Time. We are here inside the historic Lyric Theater in Overtown. The Lyric Theater was built in 1913. Throughout its history, legendary performers like Louis Armstrong, Sammy Davis Jr., and Billie Holiday graced its stage. Throughout the next half hour, we will take a closer look at the history of the Lyric Theater and items in the attached Black archives that help tell the history of South Florida. We will also be honoring the resilience and strength of South Florida's historically Black communities and community members. One story of resilience comes from the people who lived in a Miami community that was erased. It was called the Railroad Shop Colored Edition. Black families in the neighborhood were forced to leave their homes in 1947 to make way for a park and school planned for white people. CBS News Miami's Tanya Francois spoke with the descendants of those families about starting over.
My family is from Railroad Shop Colored Edition out of Miami.
This is Rebecca Jenkins McSwain.
And the city of Miami took their property.
In this video taken by a historian with the Bowles Strawn Historical Resource Center, she tells the story of 45 families who were given just 2 hours to pack up and leave their homes by sheriff's deputies.
So my grandmother lived in the first section, and they just put those people out in the rain and locked their doors.
According to newspaper reports at that time, 119 people, including 70 children, were forced to get out.
The stories that I heard, it was raining, they were throwing things out in the streets, there was fire.
Alexis Smith Parker's family called the Railroad Shop community home. First established in the 1920s, the area from 12th to 14th Avenues and from 46th to 50th Streets, it was made up of dozens of Black homeowners and Black-owned businesses.
Pictures here of the residents with all of their materials out in the front lawn. You see furniture here, some people rolling up mattresses, looking like they had very little time before they had to evacuate their homes.
I am standing in the middle of what was the Railroad Shop Colored Edition. Back in the 1940s, this community was surrounded by an all-white area. They decided that a new park and new schools were needed, and they said they wanted to build it right here. So today, this is Charles Hadley Park, and over there is what was Allapattah Elementary and Allapattah Middle Schools.
It's funny because they built it for the whites, but now our school is basically predominantly Black.
The schools have been renamed and are now called Lenore Braden Smith Elementary and Georgia Jones Ayers Middle Schools, after childhood friends who both lived in the railroad shop. And you are the?
I am the daughter of Lenore Braden Smith. She would always point over here, it was a avocado tree. She said that tree was in their backyard. So they grew up in this neighborhood.
Smith Parker's cousin is Oscar Braden. His family was also evicted.
Their belongings were put on the street, and the houses that were left were demolished.
Demolished through eminent domain. The families say they can't imagine what life would have been like for them if their family members, the people who built the railroads in Miami, had been allowed to live in homes they owned.
This is probably one of the richest areas around in Miami-Dade County.
And what was $10,000 in 1947 is probably worth $750,000 today.
And nothing for it?
No, just a bitter taste, a bitter memory.
It's been almost 80 years since the removal of the families from the railroad shop, and their relatives, their descendants, they say they never got any compensation from the city.
That was Tanya Francois in Liberty City. Now we join her in Overtown to talk about this part of Miami's Black history.
We're here at the Lyric Theater. We're outside. This area used to be known as Little Broadway, also known as Colored Town. That was like its official name. Tell me about that.
Well, it wasn't the official name, but it certainly is what it was called. You know, for the real towners, they know this area was also called Washington Heights.
Okay.
But Colored Town was the racist moniker that was given to this neighborhood because it was where segregated Miami drew the color line for Black people to live. But despite the Colored Town moniker, right? That this was a thriving and beautiful community, right? It was not defined by what others called it. It was defined by the community that made it.
And there were like businesses. We had churches, we had hospitals, we had actual own police department, right? Because the Black police precinct was right there.
The street. Absolutely. And especially Northwest 2nd Avenue, I think, is particularly special in Overtown. This year being the 100th anniversary of the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance was in conversation with Miami. So some of those key figures like Josephine Baker were right here in Overtown, like Cab Calloway, who was a regular performer at clubs like the Harlem Square Club. I mean, the music venues were just so amazing here that this area was called the Harlem of the South.
And like a lot of Black towns throughout our country, they destroyed it. It was destroyed, I should say.
The neighborhood was crushed with the building of Interstate 95, and people were displaced through eminent domain by the thousands. And so the heart of what Overtown was absolutely destroyed through urban planning, and that was through the building of Interstate 95, as is what happened all across this country when it came to the building of highways.
And what era are we talking about? Like, because this isn't that long ago.
I mean, I think the sweet spot of Overtown and the thriving music scene was certainly the 40s and 50s. But even before then, the Lyric Theater was built in the early 1900s. It is the oldest theater in Miami, built by Jeter Walker, a Black man from Georgia. And so there's so much rich history, and there's so much arts and culture that is Overtown rooted, and that is Black history.
And even today, we're still like bringing Overtown back up. Like there are some little pockets, right?
I mean, I wouldn't even say little pockets. I think this has always been a hub of ingenuity. This has always been a hub of creativity. This has always been a hub of spirituality.
Right.
Many of our oldest
Black churches are here in
Miami
Overtown.
Are here in Overtown, and so there is a lot of beauty that was in Overtown, and there still is a lot of beauty in Overtown today. I think if we honor what was and what is, we cannot deny the importance of this community in Miami.
And speaking of this community, where we're headed, we're almost there to D.A. Dorsey's house and his significance to Overtown, his importance. He's left his mark.
He absolutely left his mark. As a Black philanthropist here in Miami, Dana A. Dorsey was a millionaire, right? In Black Miami, he owned Fisher Island on Miami Beach.
Right.
He had a dream that it would become all Black resort, right? That did not come to fruition, that dream, but he did so much in this community, from donating land for the building of the library for the Black community, donating land for the building of schools, and just all around philanthropy in Black Miami. Dana A. Dorsey was an early philanthropist in Miami, and his mark still stands today, and the home that he built still stands as well.
Right. And we've made it. We've made it here to his home, and just a few paces away, right, from the Lyric Theater to here, there's just so much importance and there's just so much significance to Black Miami-Dade beginning right here in Overtown.
Absolutely. I think if you've ever walked the streets of Overtown, even if you don't know the story, that these streets are lined in history. And you only need to look a little bit to know that history. There are markers all around the neighborhood. The Black Archives has done a beautiful job in preserving some of the buildings, like the Dana A. Dorsey House, like the Lyric Theater. And so this is a space in Miami where you can see the impact of Miami's Black community also preserved historically and architecturally through the buildings that still stand.
Thank you so much for your time and this walk.
Thank you.
In Miami, Tanya Francois, CBS News Miami.
Without efforts to preserve the stories of places like the railroad shop, they risk being forgotten. Next, we introduce you to a trio focused on keeping Miami's Black history alive.
My name is Camila Pritchett, Executive Director of the Black Archives History and Research Foundation of South Florida. We're here inside the historic Lyric Theater, built in 1913 by a Black man and saved from demolition by Black Archives founder Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields.
How much more time before I get the dignity I should receive?
Welcome back to CBS News Miami's celebration of Black history. If history isn't told, it risks being forgotten. A group of South Floridians are committed to making sure Miami's Black history will always be remembered. They're all current or former CBS News Miami employees. Our Hank Tester gives us a look at their efforts.
Miami's Black history is rich with untold tales. Finding and telling them is challenging and rewarding.
What we're doing is we're educating the community, we're educating ourselves.
We here at CBS Miami don't have to go far to find people who are deeply involved in Black history, and they're not even on TV.
Meet our colleagues behind Profiles in Black Miami. They are CBS Miami employees and one former employee. That's Keith Moore, who works in our Technical Operations Center, and Anne-Marie Henry, a floor director, and former Master Control Operator Christine Malcolm. They're the driving force behind the nonprofit Profiles in Black Miami, a website packed with little-known Miami Black history.
We're complete students of history. We're not experts.
Away from work, they research, make contacts, dig up pictures, develop sources, and the information finds its way to multiple social media platforms.
We had no idea. We often wonder, where was this going to go?
But one way it went, production of more than 30 videos, documentaries, all available on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Talks to civic groups encouraged by historians, community leaders.
So I've seen websites actually start to replay some of our things that we've had on our page. Now they're putting it out there.
Unlike now, Black history, Black stories traditionally ignored back in the day. It takes finite research, reading between the lines to dig it all out.
For now, I still have to read every line of all those old newspapers.
Anne-Marie Henry writes and voices the documentaries. She also organizes, along with Keith and Christine, the street naming events.
The feedback on the street namings are amazing.
A series of Miami streets now named for Miami's Black pioneers and those who showed compassion and understanding of the Black community.
And we dug a lot of facts up in order to have these things happen.
Satisfaction for Keith Moore, who learned his history from his grandparents, Bahamian pioneers. They filled him with stories of historic Coconut Grove.
So it was thousands of stories they told me.
And now, Keith, Christine, and Anne-Marie telling those stories to a far larger audience, and they're being heard and seen. Hank Tester, CBS News, Miami.
South Florida has such a rich Black history. Up next, we look at the migration of Black people from Miami-Dade to Broward County.
Here we are in the vault of the Black Archives, where we keep most of our collections that have been processed. Here with me is one of our most significant pieces, which is a cross that was burnt by the Ku Klux Klan in 1949. This is one of the many records that we have representing our history in Miami.
Broward County's Black history dates back to at least the late 1800s, years before the land officially became Broward County. Many Black pioneers came to the area from further north to work on the railway. Fast forward to the 1940s, and we start to see Black people in Miami move north to Broward. CBS News Miami's Chelsea Jones spoke to a woman whose family settled in what was once called Carver Ranches.
I'm here in Carver Ranches, a neighborhood in Broward County, here at the Bull Strawn House with Cynthia Strawn. Tell me the significance of this home.
Well, this is one of 4 display houses that was built back in 1940. My grandmother, Ethelyn Bowes from Cat Island, purchased it for $895. Now, this particular gentleman here is Carl T. Hoffman. He and his two partners formed a corporation called Carver Ranches, Inc., purchased these 300 acres called Carver Ranches, and only sold land to black people.
Talk to me about the migration of black people here to Broward County.
Now, one important thing is when they purchased these acres and sold to black people, they took door-to-door salesmen would go down to Miami to the pockets where the black folks live, Overtown, Liberty City, Railroad Shop, and hey, we got this property up here called Carver Ranches. You can buy your own land and build your own home. And baby, that's just what they did.
All right, let's talk about the ladies here in Carver Ranches. What do we have in this case right here?
Oh, I love the ladies. Now, you know black folks know how to dress up when they going somewhere. From head to toe. They had all the necessary accessories to make sure from head to toe looked 100%.
So when they came to Carver Ranches, they really created a community. So you talked about churches, they built their homes, their churches.
Yeah, nothing was here but the palmetto bushes in the 4 houses. So they came, they built it up. We were like a mini Black Wall Street. Everything we needed, they started from scratch. That's why they're called pioneers. The churches, the school. You know, we didn't have a school, so we had to go to Hallandale. And we had these strong Bahamian women that would take charge and make sure these things happen.
And you talked about the people and just how significant they are in building of this neighborhood of Carver Ranches. What are we looking at here?
Carver Ranches is the people. They made Carver Ranches. All of these families here moved out here in the 1940s, full of faith, not sure what to expect.
So tell me about the significance of the bricks here that lie on this
ramp. On these bricks are names of families that moved out here in the 1950s, and they were also all black at the same time. They came here just full of hope, full of prayers, along with all these 4 people that came here in the 1940s. Now the palmetto bush, there was 300 acres full of palmetto bush, palm trees, and polecats. And it was so significant because it's medicinal. You get whippings with it, and you can just roast your marshmallows. And the Indians used it for years because they know of the medicinal value of it. And then later, the pharmaceutical companies found out that it's very good saw palmetto for prostate cancer for men. So you see, promises from the palmetto bush is also hope from the palmetto bush.
All right, Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And Naja, I'll send it back to you.
One man who is passionate about teaching the rich black history of South Florida is giving tours of places that are important to the community. I had a chance to take one of his tours, and I'll take you along next.
The Black Archives collection contains items of enduring value from 1896 to present. These things tell the story of Black Miami from its incorporation to present day.
How much more time before I get the dignity? How much time?
Over the past half hour, we have introduced you to people in the community who are dedicated to preserving and teaching Black history. I had the opportunity to join the founder of Tap Tap Tours to learn more about Miami's rich and vibrant Overtown neighborhood.
Tap Tap Tours is a labor of love for tour guide Gene Sedelka. He's an architect by profession, but sharing the rich Black history of Overtown with others is his passion.
The only way to make the future better is to know what happened in the past, and then you learn from that.
First stop on the Tap Tap Tour, the Black Police Precinct and Courthouse Museum in Overtown. Established in 1950, this historic building served as the headquarters for Miami's African-American police officers.
And then they came together to actually have this as a functional, police, precinct.
Come on, welcome to Jackson Soul Food.
Next stop, Jackson's Soul Food, a landmark African-American restaurant in Overtown for more than 70 years.
This is the oldest restaurant in Overtown. It actually started 79 years ago and is still going strong.
From there, we learned about Overtown's baseball history with stops at Gibson Park and Dorsey Park.
Whenever he played, he was so strong and powerful, he will knock the ball out of the park. This is Josh Gibson. If you think of Michael Jordan, what he represents to basketball.
Sedelka shared the history of the historic building he calls the White House of Overtown. It once belonged to D.A. Dorsey, Miami's first black millionaire, whose entrepreneurial vision shaped the city's early development.
The original house was actually built in 1920. It was remodeled in 1996.
And the Lyric Theater. It opened in 1913 and hosted numerous performances. It continues to serve as a cultural hub for the black community in Miami.
I came to Overtown 5 years ago.
Overtown business owner Viola Nikes joined us on the tour. She owns Eben, a plant-based organic hair and skincare brand. She told me after the tour she feels more connected to the community.
Having the tour actually puts everything in perspective for me. Things that I've heard about, I get to see in person now.
Other people on the tour shared similar sentiments.
I enjoyed also the stories about Cassius Clay, and that, you know, there was a thriving jazz scene here with Duke Ellington, one of my favorite singers.
It was just like, whoa, I need to know more, I need to know more. Then you hear about the entertainment district, you go down to Lyric Theater, and then you see what they're currently doing in the community with the community garden, and I don't know, I'm just hooked.
Sedelka is giving Black History Tours since 2016 and started Tap Tap Tours in 2018. He offers the tours year-round and now has 10 partners who help share the area's Black history.
We hope you enjoyed this look at some of South Florida's rich Black history. Thank you for watching. From the Black Archives Historic Lyric Theater, I'm Naja Sherman. We leave you with Jim Barry and Benevolence.